Whatu naro naro te tangata, Toitū te whenua. As man disappears from sight, the land remains.
In Aotearoa, every hill, river and coastline carries a name, and with it, a story. Toitū te whenua is a journey into the heart of these stories, uncovering the deep cultural, historical and spiritual significance of Māori place names across the motu. Through the voices of mana whenua, this series reveals how names are more than markers. They are living connections to whakapapa, whenua and te reo Māori in modern times. Each episode invites viewers to see the land not just as geography, but as a narrative woven through generations. Join us as we explore the meaning behind the names, the people who carry them, and the enduring relationship between language and land. This is Toitū te whenua, e kōrero ana te whenua, e whakarongo ana mātou, where the land speaks and we listen. In our first series, our expedition began at Mount Pikirakatahi, leading us through the lakes and following the Mata'o River back to Ōtepoti. In this second series of Toitū te whenua, we continue our journey through the place names of Te Waipounamu and head north of Ōtepoti along the coastline, where there are many more tales of the names that lie on the land. The Moka Tipuna, the ancestral mountains, Mihiwaka and Māpounui, stand sentinel, as they have done always, during the long centuries of occupation by Waitaha, Kātimāmoe and Kaitahu. Below Māpounui lies Pūrākaunui, the estuary where Māori first established kaika centuries ago, at a time when the forest flowed down to the sea. It is a mahi kakai, a renowned food basket on Te Tai o Arai Te Uru, the coastline named for the voyaging waka Arai Te Uru. It's at about the midpoint between the pā at Huriawa and Pukekura, homes to the hapu, Kāti Huirapa and Kai Te Ruahikihiki.
Kia ora, I'm Nikki. I'm from Kaitahu, Kātimāmoe and Waitaha people, and have lived or been associated with Pūrākaunui all my life. My nana lived here, and so from the beginning of our days we always visited.
Ko Mihiwaka, ko Māpounui ka Mauka, ko Arai Te Uru te Tai, ko Kaitahu, ko Kātimāmoe, ko Waitaha ka iwi, ko Kāti Huirapa, ko Kai Te Ruahikihiki ka hapu, ko Puketeraki te marae, ko Māpoutahi te pā, ko Pūrākaunui te kaika. So my auntie Nikki has been involved in the Pūrākaunui Land Trust for many years. I've been talking to her about the mahi that they do, which is really important to me. I felt like to be able to participate in that mahi as kaitiaki of this whenua, I needed to be home.
This was our playground as children. Maputahi, the beach, the boats, all of that. We had a marvellous time as kids growing up here. Well, there's been a bit of change, and as children we probably didn't have a lot of exposure to formal learning about our kaitahu connections.
As we know with history, there are many perspectives on what happened, and when you have disconnection of oral transmission of history, which has happened in our whānau, you know, the suppression of your Māori identity over 2 or 3 generations means that you don't get those stories passed down through your own whānau, and therefore, you know, I rely on the kōrero of other people. And as we know, depending who told the story, there's going to be a really different slant on that.
The inquiry and learning has really just arisen in very recent decades, and even now new information is being discovered, so our perspective changes all the time, and the place names have reflected that.
So the cool thing about having te reo is that I can look at those manuscripts that have been written in te reo Māori and understand them as a first-hand translation, rather than relying on other people's perspectives and translations of them.
I've been associated with a man called Robert John McLaughlin, who died in 2019, but he's the man who was instrumental in forming the Pūrākaunui block in 1972.
John McLaughlin applied to the NZ Geographic Board in 1989 to have several place names in the area corrected or restored. Pūrākaunui was one, Whareakeake another, which had become known as Murdering Beach, and Wharewera for Long Beach. At the same time, he progressed claims concerning Pūrākaunui through the Waitangi Tribunal, and, as a result of his efforts, in 1992, the NZ Geographic Board restored the missing U to the name.
And looking back on Walter Mantell's map, which was sketched out by his surveyor in 1848, the U is sitting in there. And when you hear different accounts of how the name came about, associated with the massacre at Maputahi, is a suggestion that that's where the name came from.
So in Athol Anderson's book, The Welcome of Strangers, there is a good account of the attack on Maputahi. So in this narrative, which is recounted in the words of the late upoko of Otaka Runaka, George Allison, in 1976. And so he says Te Paki Haukea, who was a rakatira in his own right, but he was connected to Te Wera. So he was Te Wera's ally, I think is what they're saying here. He built a pā on Maputahi, which is the little peninsula over the hill there. A very good stronghold it was. And Tauka, he heard about this new pā, and so he thought he'd come down and fix this chap up as utu for his son, because Te Wera had killed Tauka's son further up the way earlier. So he came down and surrounded this place and couldn't get in because it was well fortified. And then one night it was pretty wintry. Other accounts say it was snowing, and he sent his scouts around to have a good look. They reported, oh yes, the place had all the sentries up there. But he went for himself and had a closer look, and he found that they were only dummies blowing in the wind. So that finished that lot off. They went in there and attacked and cleared the whole place out. There was only one man escaped from there. He jumped into the sea and swam away. Other accounts suggest a few others managed to escape on vine ladders used for fowling on the cliffs. In the morning, he, Tauka, gathered all the people, which were their bodies, up like a pile of wood, and that is where the name came from, Pūrākaunui.
We do know that as early as the 1430s to the 1460s, there were kumara pits just across here, and we don't, the Maputahi conflict is dated around the 1750s, which is much later in the years when Ngaitahu were moving in.
You know, when you go to Maputahi, you can see the whole coastline. You know, you can see all the way up to Huriawa, you know, where Te Wera was based or had been based. You can see down to Pukekura. So you've got a really good view around the Aotearoa coast. And, you know, I think once the times of war passed, there was, you know, massive movement up and down between those kaika that were scattered all along the Aotearoa coast. And you can see by sea how easy it was for our whānau to get, you know, to get to each other and to communicate.
We weren't taught that story as children, and I'm not sure it's, unless we make a point of talking about it to people who come here, it's not well known.
As a child, I didn't really hear that story, and I think to me a pūrākau is a story. So when you think about a pūrākau, I just thought it was some big story, which in effect it is. And it wasn't until I was an adult and I was doing some mahi translating manuscripts with Aoraki Matatu, which is a rōpū of fluent reo speakers, kaitahu speakers, and we were translating the kōrero around the battle at Māpoutahi that I learnt the true meaning of Pūrākaunui, which is that it is, rākau is the main focus, and it is that after the battle so many had died that they were stacked up. It was also probably snowing at that time, and they were stacked up in piles, and the next morning the snow had settled on them, and so it looked like stacks of wood.
I'm not sure many people would truly understand the history of some of the big settlements and pā sites, which are now places for recreation. And Huriawa is very well recognised and cared for and publicised, the story and the history, but Māpoutahi is quite overlooked.
I think that as an adult they have come to symbolise those tipuna, but as a young person growing up, still learning my kaitahu hitori, our own pūrākau, I wasn't aware. They were just names to me at that time. I have grown up speaking te reo Māori, so I could understand the meanings of the names, but I didn't necessarily understand the context in which they were created.
There's more and more information becoming available with the publication of new books, the work Ngāi Tahu themselves are doing, the migration history of Ngāi Tahu, and old manuscripts and stories are now being made accessible in a way that we've never had before.
I'm really happy that our Māori Place names are being brought back to life in terms of visibility and our signage. The macrons particularly, like the Māori linguist in me just thinks that's awesome, because the place of a macron can really change the meaning of a word, and so being guided in the correct pronunciation of words is really important.
Look, I still drive into here, come home at night, and I see there are two signs up the top, Pūrākaunui, macrons. It's just fabulous to see the change.
I feel like, the dream for me is that every generation is better and is going to that next level in terms of cultural revitalisation and strength, and I feel like that's happening. So I feel really happy and I feel hopeful for the future of te reo Māori.
In Aotearoa, the land speaks. It speaks through names, ancient, poetic and powerful. Each name is a thread in the fabric of whakapapa, woven by generations who walked this whenua long before us. These are not just labels on a map. They are stories, they are memories, they are markers of identity, resilience and belonging. Many names have been lost, changed or silenced, but the land remembers, and so do the people. This is a journey of rediscovery, a journey to honour the voices of the land. Because when we speak the names, we awaken the stories. In the next episode of Toitū Te Whenua, we continue our journey north to Puketeraki and Moiraki, travelling the coastline named for the voyaging waka Araituru, Te Tai o Araituru. This is Toitū Te Whenua. The land remains, and so do the names.